So let's talk housing and architecture in Mexico.
And let's debunk the idea that Mexico is cheap by showing you things here, also in my home, and I'm gonna show you 2 more places. Because honestly, if you're moving to Mexico because it's more affordable, it might not be the right thing for you, so it's something to consider.
Good morning, sunshine. If you're new to me, hi, my name is Karen, and my daughters and I have been traveling full-time for 5 years and using Mexico as our home base for the past 2.
And while here, we've searched for homes like 3 or 4 times and lived in several different places.
So I'll be giving you tips throughout the video on what has worked for me and how to be the most conscious traveler, or what I recommend as I learn.
Because I feel like one of the huge reasons that prices here are so different than other countries in North America is because the variety that exists within style, build, and functionality of a home.
One of the things I love about San Cristobal de las Casas is the mixture of architecture. Like you have old world meets new world. And possibly because of the flexibility and the rules of construction, there's more availability when it comes to price points. More people can afford housing because there's less rules on how to construct the housing. Homelessness is not seen in the same way here as it is in the United States, in my experience. Also, there's a big sense of community. So families will live together instead of somebody struggling to pay rent.
Now keep in mind that Mexico is quite large, and what's culturally common here might not be in other parts of Mexico.
As we start talking about housing, I thought I'd bring you here because they have a bunch of different constructions all in one place, like the log home style. So this kind of slotted wood usually doesn't have any insulation. There's gaps in between one piece of wood and the other. And this beautiful wall, which luckily has been preserved and is still used in some areas for construction.
And it's eco-friendly.
There you can even see a brick house. They do have concrete mixed with wood. Some homes I've visited have had bathrooms outside.
All things that matter when you're looking for a place to live. Especially in a state that has really extreme temperatures, like really, really hot because we're at such high altitude, but also it gets really, really cold. And then you have humidity and rain, etc.
How do you eat your huevos rancheros? Do you eat them with a fork and knife or just grab them? Alright, so bring you guys here might have been an excuse for me to eat here and have some delicious drinks. Okay, I moved inside to have my coffee. Your drink. Thank you, Cynthia, for my coffee. It's so good. And thank you everybody for your support. Now kitchens and built like this could be a gas stove, but it could also just be open fire. Now because of that, a lot of houses don't come with a stove, or they'll have like a small camping style stove. That's what I had when I first moved here.
And that is part of the giving you an option to what it is that you can afford. If you can only afford wood burning, then you go with that. If you can afford to buy a stove, you buy your own.
Okay, so let's debunk the idea that Mexico is cheap. Yes, you can get a home for a lot less here in Mexico, but that doesn't necessarily make it cheap. You're just getting a different product, so you're paying for a different product. I feel like the difference is that in Mexico, you have more opportunities to find something that fits your budget. Of course, this is not taking into account the situation that we're experiencing in the United States, in which big corporations are buying most of the homes and using them to make profit off of rentals. Something that I believe the locals are actively challenging, and the reason that they're trying to avoid gentrifiers coming into their state or into Mexico in general. I unfortunately feel like gentrification, it's impossible to stop, but I do think that in good conscience, we can try to do our best to help the situation by trying to leave the smallest footprints possible as foreigners. When you take out inflation and the situation that is happening with corporations out of the pricing of a home, you can see more clearly the difference in real estate between one country and the others. In the United States, there's so many rules when it comes to renting a home or buying a home that the price of a home becomes directly linked to something outside of yourself. Here, the fact that the rules are more flexible gives you more opportunities to build something within your budget and in a timely manner. Like, you know, whatever you can afford at the moment, you do that first and then move on to the next. Same with rents. There's more opportunity to find something you can actually afford. That's the reason I wanted to show you the different kinds of constructions at that beautiful restaurant we went to. And I also want to show you in my own house. Now, I know I already did a house tour, and I'll add a link to that in the description, but I want to take you around my home to show you the specific things that will alter the price of your home when you're renting here in Mexico, and how there's things that only if you live remotely in the United States you'll find in your home, but most homes in cities will not have. I will also be showing you a couple of homes in the area at different price points so you can see what you get. The most obvious one to me is the water well and water pump. So the way this works is that the water gets pumped from the water well all the way up to the tinaco, which is a container in the roof. And then the way that the water flow in the house works is by gravity. So we have decent water pressure, but not comparable to what you have over there, because I actually looked it up. To make the water pressure stronger, you would need a pump in the roof. Now here in Mexico, I haven't personally seen the pump in the roof. I know they're available, but I've also seen that these sometimes are programmed. So you never have to be the one to turn them on. Just they turn on automatically when the water level goes down or something like that. So a house with something like that would be possibly more. The other thing I would say is water related would be water filter. Not only a filter like where the tinaco is, in which case the water that you shower with would not be as hard. As you saw in the last video, I have water filters in the shower heads. Therefore, that prevents hard water from coming out into the shower. But if you had a filter in the tinaco, then it would filter all your water. Again, a house like that would be more pricey. I also have a house tour of a house that has drinkable water dispenser on the sink. I'll link that video below. That house was gorgeous, but we're talking about mansion, like huge house with tons of rooms, maid's quarters, that kind of thing. And yes, more expensive. Water pump and filtration are both things that are usually taken care of by the city, county, in the United States, and varies from city to city. Here, each home is responsible for it. So as I showed you at the restaurant, the materials for construction are also very different, and a lot of houses most likely did things in stages as their family grew and they needed more space, or maybe needed to rent out a room or things like that, right? So because of that, you might have a house that's fully concrete in the bottom, and then the second floor will be made out of wood, for example. I've also seen housing with this kind of roofing in the middle of the house. But since some of the houses have indoor patios here, they'll have this, say, in the living room, which in which in warmer areas, I'm sure like works out. When it gets cold in the house as well. But to be honest, with the lack of AC here, when it gets warm, it's probably a plus. You just have to deal with the elements more, I guess. And the sound when it rains. Now some price points are just not for extranjero. Yes, I speak from experience. So I had a friend who was from Guadalajara, and we went down the street knocking on doors. And they would just say, no, it's not available, even though there was a sign posted that said it was available, right? And because it's our street that we walk down all the time, I knew that the signs were new. We knocked on about 6 places, and they all said no. Now, his accent was totally different, and he was obviously from Guadalajara. We did find one place that he was able to speak to, and we actually were able to get into it.
This place was $1,200, and it was a simple 1 room, 1 bathroom situation. It did have a slight closet, but for the most part it was just open space. That extra door that you see leads to the people's home, so this is a piece of their home they're renting. Then you have the bathroom, which the shower did not have hot water, but it's a simple bathroom, and it has an opening to the outside for ventilation. And then the front door leads straight to the to the street, but you can't beat the price.
So even though the price of this was fantastic for what you were getting, it was not for extranjeros. So back to the differences. Something like a toilet seat is not a given. Homes are sometimes rented without refrigerators, without stoves, without any way of cooking. And this is because, like I said before, some people just use charcoal or wooden logs to cook. The need for a stove is not for everybody here. My house came with both, but she was expecting extranjeros, possibly why I was also furnished. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, how I was gonna give you guidelines on how to make the least footprint, I guess, as far as gentrification goes. I think one of the things that I try to look for is a Mexican or local homeowner. And this was their childhood home, as far as I understand. So as the family grew and they no longer needed it, they decided to rent it out. In the same way, anybody that I hired to do things like carpentry and fixing things and anything like that, I make sure they're local. What effect that has on gentrification? It's hard to say, but we're here doing our best, trying to make the minimal footprint, trying to give back to a community that has really welcomed us with open arms. So the next house I want to show you is a house that my landlord asked me to take a look at and record a video for her so she can show it to potential clients.
This house was on top of a really big hill here in San Cristobal. It's still walkable to downtown, and it was like a duplex sort of house, like a double townhouse. And it had 3 stories. Here you can see the bottom. The kitchen had cabinets, which is rare. At least cabinets with doors are rare. And a full fridge and a stove. Then off the kitchen, it had this little laundry room where you saw the water heater. And she said she was going to add machines to it. I love that my landlord loves plants as much as I do. So there were plants everywhere. Too bad I killed the ones she had in my house. I did buy her new ones though. Then the dining room was on the lower story. And it had like a little balcony. Very cute. She has really good taste. She makes things really adorable. And the view was just jaw-dropping. Like, seriously. Like here, there's a little bit of plants, so you can't see as much, but when you go upstairs, it's amazing. And this one had a fireplace, which I think is really good for homes here because they usually don't have any heating sources. That is just, I haven't seen any that are not supplied by the actual renter. Then on the top story, there was a middle area that was like for an office. And of course, a lot of natural lighting. And then 2 bedrooms on each end. This is the first bedroom with closet space and its own bathroom. And a balcony leading towards the front. So the view on this side is not as pretty as the back room, but wait until you see the back room. This is the master, and look at that view. Oh my god. Yeah. If this house wasn't almost twice the amount I pay, I would have totally taken it. Oh, and it doesn't have as many bedrooms as mine, but look at that. Oh, how beautiful. And again, this one had its own bathroom with a queen-size bed. Very modern decor, a closet unit. Now, things in San Cristobal are usually open like that because of the weather and the humidity. And then this is a rooftop, which is definitely a plus. I can't really go on my rooftop. And not only do you have this view, but you can also host a party up here if you wanted to because it has a railing. And hang your clothes to dry. And there's the tinacos.
This house was posted on Facebook Marketplace for $15,000. Now, no, another gentrification guideline is that I will never tell you the price of a house unless it's listed on the internet. The first house I showed you, that one wasn't listed, but you can rent it anyways, which we respect as foreigners. So even though some people come to San Cristobal with a very, very low budget, a house like this is already set with anything that you might ever need. There's nothing that you need to fix to be able to move in. Another thing that would alter the price of your home is whether you're in a privada or something of the sort. The most expensive house that I linked below, that I told you was kind of like a mansion, that house was in a gated community. Gated community means security, which is a little bit different. The first house I lived in when I first moved to San Cristobal, they also had staff. So they had a guy taking care of the garden at all times, and they had a cleaning lady that would come every Wednesday. All of this was included in the price. I will link that video below. I wasn't totally satisfied with that apartment, but for different reasons. Another thing that varies from house to house is the gas container. Obviously there's several sizes. You have the little tiny ones, you have the medium ones, you have these, but then you have the gigantic ones. A lot of houses don't have the really big ones that are stationary, but some houses do. So the price of the house will definitely change depending on what kind of gas container you have.
And I'm sure I missed something. There's so many differences in each home that I have lived in and each home that I have seen. So if you have any questions, please let me know and I'll make a video on your questions. Thank you so much for watching. Love you. Bye.